is sad that they make it so that it should be said. Okay, when we look at life historically, white guys are basically very slow when they get strong, weren't that aggressive in terms of aggressive strikes. They're kind of like a big boar, right? Sets compared to the boar among other animals, okay? Other races as well. They weren't as coordinated. They didn't naturally come into being a big guy like black people do. You know, a good example is kind of Mike Tyson versus Butterbean. Butterbean is more kind of typical of a white bigger guy. Tyson and to some degree Lennox Lewis. There's various types. However, neither of these guys are from the most intense of African bloodlines. Okay, so when we look at them, it's like they resemble the Jew, and this is not a coincidence. For whatever reason, people that look like Jews, and some, it's confusing whether they are Jews or not, because we look at Russian history, for example. We said the White Army; these people look almost exactly like Jews. They're short, they have that kind of facial structure, etc. But they're apparently the history books say that they were racist against Jews. So it's confusing about who these people are, and certainly they collaborate with Jews in the New World Order. Okay, um, these people are less coordinated. Okay, people like this, they migrated to Northern Europe. You see a lot of tall and coordinated white guys, right? That's part of why they mess up my coordination. They have some crazed fixation. Now, with all due respect, and it has to be said to set the record straight, Asians aren't as coordinated as black people are. Not there's a significant gap. So when you see this kind of martial art argument they're making subtly, it is simply false. Okay, they're arguing just like the white and the Jew and the LGBT community to some degree that they have a superior brain function that makes them superior human beings and superior martial artists. Okay, been bringing this up for years, and I brought it up to various people, various races. Most of them aren't even offended because they know it's just true. Okay, that Africans expelled the other races, and the evidence is in the bones from the battles in Africa, and anthropology, whatever, archaeology, whatever. It's also in the body structures leading up to the last maybe 15 years when there was this massive campaign to take away from uh, black people's body structures and so on and so forth. This goes back to Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. It goes back to body art and conceptions of beauty in Greece and Rome, and I've posted some pictures to this effect. This has everything to do with rape by deception. When you take people who are greater warriors than you are, demand more respect, are the main civil rights leaders, etc., and you take away from their appeal and make it so they're no longer clear-cut number one in the minds and views of other people. And keep in mind, black people weren't exactly getting all the attractive women from every race, mind you, in this country. Then you are an extreme rapist. So when you see a bunch of white nerds, Jewish nerds, okay, token minority nerds, and they get together and say, let's take away from, this guy's the most handsome guy that ever lived, let's take away from his appeal, okay, all their marriages and their offspring marriages are invalid after that. There is no making them valid. They are just the colonial oppressor that sabotaged God's chosen martial art order. Because at the end of the day, the Bible is just a book. I've been studying it for years. It's just a book. It's just a book with opinions of scribes, okay, exploring morale. It's a philosophical book and where they claim to have spiritual insight, but countless people did. We don't even know who wrote the book, but we do know that God set apart the Royal African martial art line as the true chosen line of humanity. Okay, so even if you're a Christian, when you look at that, you say, we can't cheat these guys and then be the elite of society and the governing and managerial classes and keep moving with ill-gotten gains and be right with God and be right with man and have marriages and relationships worth valuing because you're in that immoral repetition. They don't seem to understand this, okay, because they're not very romantic, they're not decent, they don't have dignity, they don't have basic self-respect, they don't have honor, they don't have a moral code. They're just capitalist, colonialist, neo-colonialist abusers, okay? Whether or not the history of satanic ritual abuse in popular culture is true, we know that these people move in the spirit of Satan and they abuse people. And they're abusing me in what can be described fairly as a ritual manner. Every day they abuse me. Every day they're in my life abusing me. They're hacking my phone, etc. And they're trying to make it seem like these little guys, like imagine them with some kind of weird boots on, with some kind of little jockey whip, say acting like they're in charge. Okay, they have some kind of Marquis de Sade complex. Remember, Marquis de Sade was, He was one of the noblemen. He was one of the rich people. He had a bunch of rich friends. Okay, these people continued their work. It's very much connected to Weishaupt. He's said to be from Weishauptian movement and so on and so forth. The quote-unquote Illuminati, but I'm not going to talk about that in this video. But we know they have these social clubs like the sex cults they have and so on. As Keith Rainier and Weinstein and all these guys abusing everyone with impunity. And then one day, Epstein and them, one day they get caught and there's astronomical numbers. Where if you're the average black man, you probably get caught pretty quickly. You see what I'm saying? So we can look at this thing and know that they do not understand love, God, what it means to be a man, etc., etc. When you understand these things, you have no business leading anybody. No business being a church leader, a martial art leader, a politician. No business calling yourself royalty. They should give this stuff up immediately. You see what I'm saying? And what's so bad is people kept falling. They kept bringing them down. The spirit of bringing them down. Hey, join us. Oh, hell. Oh, join the racket. And they kept bringing each other down until nobody is qualified to lead. So that's why people are going to be sealed in hell. And some of these people think that they're justified to abuse people as such, but no one's justified. No one has permission to continue living after I die, or even living outside the divine order right now, and no one has permission to abuse people. Everyone's going to be judged according to their deeds. The more money you have, the more attractive women you have, the more of a romantic theft. It's a mistake, right? Why, of all things, murder, theft, and all this, why is it called a mistake? A mistake, okay? That's going to cost you people dearly. And as you raise your kids to follow in your footsteps and date attractive women too, it's going to cost you and your bloodlines, your ancestors, and your offsprings dearly, because all the treachery of their ancestors is going to fall on them, and all the treachery of your offspring is going to fall on you, because you willingly had that offspring, and those of you raised them themselves, and so on and so forth. They're in your spirit. They're the fruit of your womb. No good tree can bear bad fruit. Why are you bearing wicked neo-colonialists every generation? You see what I'm saying? They don't understand these things. And if they did, society would not be silent while they're doing this to me, while they're changing the way people look, while they're forcing people to be gay and act gay, while they're doing all these horrible things in the world. 9 million people starved to death, all these murders, all these rapes, all this covert drugging, all this exploitation, all these assaults. People get beat up and stabbed in prison all the time and get forced to be criminals. All this horrible stuff that's going on, they don't do anything about it, because the inhabitants of the earth, we're outside of the divine order, which is moral intensity, focus moral precision, focus moral intensity. Okay, that's how you move, that's how you be a human being. Is you're morally precise to the best of your ability. And the things I talk about, it doesn't take a brain surgeon's son, the top martial artist, to figure these things out. It says, don't cheat the most righteous guy out of his right to lead. If he's righteous, I'm the most righteous guy ever. Nobody was authorized by God to cheat me out of my right to lead. I don't care if you live in Antarctica or China or across the world somewhere. I should be leading you into what is right, because my heart is the most sensitive to injustice. I'm the most right. I'm the proper scale, the proper judge. You can come up with the logic. You need me to judge, and God appointed me by making me the most righteous. God is all good, all knowing, all powerful. Okay, he's almighty and most morally mighty, and focus moral intensity. The top martial artist as the king of humanity. My verdict is sound. When you can't come up with a viable counter-argument without it can be complete bullshit, creating straw men, oversimplifying, avoiding the argument. When you can't come up with a true counter-argument, you know that my verdict is sound. Nobody is supposed to live outside the divine order, and the divine order can't be here after I'm gone, and nobody's supposed to rebel even now that you and your offspring are cut off from God. You're going to be punished more for how long you rebelled, what you did while you rebelled. You should know these things.